Well, hello, hello, hello. I am so excited to be here with all of you. My name is Winnie Sun. I'm executive producer and host of Modern Mom Monday. And we are so excited because today is the number one, the absolutely first episode of Modern Mom Monday. Thank you so much for all of you for tuning in. We are broadcasting live today, completely live. And you can join us on Facebook, on YouTube, as well as Twitter, on so many different channels. And we hope that this information is helpful for you. This was a project that my friends at Modern Mom and I came together with. We wanted to bring you content that's relatable, that's important, and things that are going on with you and your life. So today, we are starting off with two incredible guests that we are so excited to introduce to you. First off, as we know, the pandemic is something we are living and breathing right now. You are probably, I'm going to guess, joining me from the comfort of your living room, your home, and maybe some of you are joining me from work. But irregardless, I think we would all agree that from March to now, many of us have experienced a complete changeover on our lives. So today, I'm very excited to welcome two guests for you, the one and only Dr. Jill, and as well as Hedrick Nichols. First of all, Dr. Jill, thank you so much for coming in. How are you today, my friend?
Thank you, Winnie. I'm doing great. How are you today?
Great. We are so excited to have you with us. Can you give us a quick intro of where you're at? What do you do? And maybe your thoughts of how you're doing.
Great. Well, I'm a private pediatrician. I'm an owner of my own practice in Nutley, New Jersey. We see children all the way from 0 to about 23, 24 when I have to kick them out. And so we have a thriving private practice. I'm an author of a children's book called The Universe is Listening. And I do some speaking engagements. And I love spending time with my family when I'm not at the office. And we have a really great balance. And I'm happy to share all that today.
Thank you. And Dr. Jill, I also know that you are not only an award-winning pediatrician, but you've been voted many times as top doc in Jersey. So congratulations on all your accolades. We are very honored to have you with us. And without further ado, the one and only Hedrick Nichols, who is joining us from the beautiful where?
Arlington, Texas, North Texas, right down the street from Cowboy Stadium. Not that I'm a Cowboy fan, just saying.
You're not a Cowboy fan. Is that okay?
That is, in Texas, it's generally not, but Steelers forever. Sorry.
I feel like you're in the wrong state today.
I know.
But we are so excited to have you. Maybe you could share with our viewers here today who you are, what you do, and maybe most importantly, how you're doing.
Okay, I am Hedrick Nichols. I'm an educator. I teach children technology in middle school in an IB setting. I teach teachers how to get better at doing tech and social justice things. And I have two children's books coming out in January on anti-racism and Black Lives Matter movement. They're kind of it's a library series to help educate children. And working on my first full-length book on equity strategies for teachers. So excited, got a lot going on. Oh, host of Small Bites, Friday nights on YouTube. I forgot that one.
Small Bites on YouTube, very cool. I feel like you've got a lot of stuff going on. You are one busy lady.
A lot going on. It's just the time that I think everyone being at home, we've had a chance to kind of develop some of those talents that we didn't get to use so much when we were kind of busy running here and there and doing so much, running the kids back and forth to lessons and sports things. So I was able to just kind of dig in and write. And so those are the things that came out of that.
Wow. Well, we feel very grateful that the two of you are joining us because as we know, many parents are really confused about what's going on with the pandemic, with the coronavirus. And I'm sure that both of you have been hearing and reading of a lot of the concerns that we as parents have. As you know, I am a parent of three little ones downstairs. My oldest, I have an 11-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 6-year-old downstairs. And right now we're probably competing a little bit for bandwidth because they're on a dinosaur lesson. But that being said, we are seeing things that we haven't seen. We're going through a process where deciding whether or not our kids go back to school. I'm here in Southern California, so that decision has been made. We are going to be distance learning. I think that's the case for many of us. But really quick, before I get too deep in it, I want to say a quick thank you to Corey for joining us, Sarah, Kurt, Tina, Mom Angelus, and Robin, Steven. I know so many others of you do know that we are monitoring comments and questions. So on whatever platform that you're joining us from, feel free to submit any questions in direct message. We do see your comments. And if there's anything you want to ask after the fact, you can always send us a comment and we'll make sure that those get to Dr. Jill or Hendrik as well. So not to worry, we hear you and we appreciate you being here. And if you don't mind, while you're here with us, feel free to invite friends and family that you think would benefit from today's discussion. Today's discussion, we're talking about the coronavirus and what this means for parents that have children and not sure about all these decisions. And also because we're hearing so much conflicting information in the news. Dr. Jill, this is something that I know you know very, very well. You see a lot of parents with their children, and there's been a lot of concern, right, of what this means. And are our children immune? Are they immune to the coronavirus? Are they just as prevalent to be contracting the coronavirus? And are they going to spread it as rapidly if they go back to school? Dr. Jill, what sort of questions do you see parents asking you these days?
Well, first of all, Winnie, I have to give a shout out to every parent in this country. A pandemic is nothing any of us regular people were ready for. And the way that I've seen my small little corner of the world handle this, the parents have maintained their grace. They've stayed calm, tried to take deep breaths. Yes, there's yelling at home. And yes, there's too much screen time. And yes, there's too much snacking. And there's so much, but people are keeping it together. And I'm so proud of everybody. So first of all, to all the moms and the dads listening, great work on just getting through this the best you can. I find that every parent that has a concern in my practice, it turns out that I can tell them, well, the last 5 patients have said the same thing. And I don't say it to downplay it. I say it to make everybody feel like, again, we're all in this together and everyone's in the same boat with trying to juggle their own work. They're juggling homeschooling their children, not being able to get out and be around friends. And there's a lot of consequences to that. So it's a very difficult time. Probably in the 15 years I've been practicing, these are the toughest questions I've had to answer for my families. So one of the big questions that I do get, Winnie, is my child safe? And I've had many parents crying over the fear that their child will get this infection. So there is a lot of biology to it and biochemistry, medical stuff as to why children are less susceptible to this coronavirus infection. But it's as much as it's like the flu, it's very unlike the flu, and children are faring much better than adults when they do get the infection, and they're not even getting it that frequently as we thought they would in the beginning when everyone was getting sick.
So Dr. Jill, have you actually had patients contract the coronavirus at your practice?
So I'm happy to say that we haven't had any in our practice. However, families do go to urgent cares, and with the way our medical system is, urgent cares have been given a lot of testing before the private practitioner has in our world of pediatrics. So we have some families coming up positive where they've told us that they went to the urgent care and tested positive, but we are not, the recommendation is not to test just because you're scared or just because you're wondering if something the child had a few months ago was the infection. So I have to thankfully say I have not had any patients who've been ill from coronavirus. Have some people probably walked through the practice with it and we don't know, or they're not coming in and we're doing telemedicine visits for sure. But for the most part, we haven't had anybody, and thankfully no one has been hospitalized with it in my neck of the woods.
Well, Hedrick, what about you? Have you had any students or teachers that you know who have contracted the coronavirus?
Yes, we've had some losses in our community. I don't know if you know about our population here in Texas, but over 50%, well over 50% of our students in Texas are Blacks and Browns and communities that are disproportionately affected by COVID. And so we will be coming back to school with some trauma, with some, some losses in the household, some losses in the families. And I think that statistics bear out that 1 in almost 3 people has been affected by a death with COVID. And so unfortunately, yeah, we are seeing some of those losses.
Wow, 1 in 3 families. That is incredible.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this, Hedrick. So school's about to start soon, right? And I know there's been a lot of discussions, obviously with parents as well as teachers. There's a lot of concerns. What does school starting in your neck of the woods look like? What does that look like? I know here where I'm at with my kids, it's all distance learning. There's actually no option to go back yet. Is that the same where you are in Texas?
Texas is a really big state, and we have a lot of different voices that are being represented, and every district is kind of able to make decisions on their own. I will say we have a lot of districts that are starting online, but there are some that are starting face-to-face as well. So I know that I work in a public charter, and we have a large population of communities that are disproportionately affected. And we are being very, very careful. I'm really proud of the work that they've done to make sure that we have really good distance learning for as long as we can before we put our kids back into the classrooms. And once we actually have to go back in the classrooms, which at this point we're not quite sure when that will be, sometime after September 8th as it stands, they're really working with the health department to make really good plans to make sure that we are following social distancing, that we are able to wear masks and visors, that we can make it as safe as possible for everyone who will be back on campus. We are offering 3 options: a hybrid option, a face-to-face option, and a full virtual option. And as a parent, I'm not sure where I will fall, but as a parent, my son will be learning 100% online this year.
So as a parent, you have chosen 100% online for your son. But as a teacher, which will you be teaching in person, or are you going to be because I know you're also very strong on technology. Are you doing distance learning teaching or in-person teaching?
That's a very good question.
So you don't know yet.
Yeah, that's all I got. Yeah, it's still kind of up in the air how everything is going to go after the initial distance learning phase.
Gotcha. So, Dr. Jill, in our city here, I'm actually in Southern California in Orange County, and there actually we were believe it or not, we were trending, probably not for the best reasons, a few weeks ago, about the Orange County Board of Education was very adamant that children should go back to school, but they should also go back to school without social distancing and without masks. And there was a lot of uproar, and the governor then came in and said, no, everyone's going to be sort of distance learning for the short term. How do you feel about that as a pediatrician and as a parent? How do you feel with your own child, and how do you feel as a physician with the knowledge that you have?
Well, first of all, I'll say as a member of the American Academy of Pediatrics, I do stand behind. We all know we want the children to go back to school. The question is, how can we do it in the safest possible manner? There's no 100% risk-free option here, but how do we do it in the most effective manner to get children back to school? As a family, we've chosen for Isabella to go back to school, to go in person, but their school is not offering a full 100% in person. That will be a hybrid program. You go for 2 days of the week and home for the other 3, and switching around like that. So we've opted, because she's 11 and can wear a mask, and they will be socially distancing, keeping the desks apart, being very mindful of the ventilation and the recess and lunch times and all those kind of things. We felt comfortable enough to send her.
Gotcha. Thank you for that. I think, that I think is a really reasonable concern and questions and whatnot, is our children's ability to most importantly keep their relationships with their friends, right? Have that social interaction, but as well as being mature enough to keep social distance and make sure that they keep their masks on. Like, for example, I know, like, my 6-year-old, even my 8-year-old, like, we go bicycle riding, and I remember, like, within 10 minutes, they all want to throw their masks on the ground, right? There's just I I just can't imagine that they would be mature enough to make sure that they take their masks off properly, to have a snack, to drink water, and then to put it back on. So I think there's like, it's very specific to every child, but unfortunately we can't always make that decision, right, Dr. Jill? But I agree with you. I think there's a lot of talk right now. I wanted to share this article that just came out. I'm sure the both of you have seen it just, I think a couple of days ago, that came out in Indiana. And the school opened and it quickly closed because of cases of coronavirus. And so this obviously was very concerning to many, many parents reading this, as well as educators, right? So Hedrick, I'm really interested to hear from you. What do your colleagues feel about going back? I mean, like you said, you don't really know, right? Kind of in limbo right now, whether or not you're going to be teaching in person or remotely. And we've heard that a lot of teachers are very concerned. We know that the unions are very, very much concerned, but we also know that they miss their students quite a bit. Do you find that there's sort of a majority in one direction, or is it still mixed?
You know what? I think the limbo makes it be a bit mixed. We all miss our kids. We miss the kinds of things that we do when we're on campus together. At the same time, we are recognizing, just as with Indiana, that I'll go back. I opted for online learning for my son simply because I think he'll be able to develop a routine more than even fear about COVID or what the health concerns are, because I think that there's going to be a lot of back and forth. You know, the things that we are still up in the air about as teachers are what happens when someone does get infected? How many kids have to be quarantined? How many teachers have to be quarantined? Is the whole school going to be closed for how many days? And so that there'll be this shift back and forth to online learning and then back in class, and then online learning and then back in class. And so I even think that when we talk about kids need to be back in school, they're going to lose that socio-emotional learning aspect. That's going to look so differently. So we can't compare good online teaching and really working to intentionally build culture with pre-COVID times, because these are no longer pre-COVID times. So there won't be lunches, communal lunches. There won't be group work. There's so many things that are missing in that face-to-face experience right now that it's going to look very different. And I guess our thought, I know for some of my friends that I'm talking to, we want to recommend or admonish parents to realize that what you experienced when everything was locked down was crisis learning. And so for those of you who are in distance education situations, this is good distance learning teaching based on pedagogical best practice for distance ed. And it will look differently. There'll be some glitches. We'll have to make some adjustments, but it won't look like, let's turn it on a dime and get in there and get these kids online. It's going to look different because we've had some time to plan and to really be intentional about building culture, about making sure that students can connect with one another online and that they connect one another doing work and doing projects and collaborating, so that those experiences will be available to them both online and face-to-face. Because again, I think there's going to be some back and forth for this school year.
Hedrick, I love that you mentioned this, that sort of that mindfulness of, you're right. When this first came about in the United States, we were really much in the unknown, right? We had to quickly scramble home. The teachers had to quickly get everybody doing distance learning. And the truth of the matter, it was very, very clunky. I know Suzanne Brown, who's joining us on LinkedIn, we've had these conversations. I mean, it was very overwhelming for teachers, students, as well as parents, of having to figure out how to continue to educate our kids while at home, while juggling work at the same time. But I was very surprised, Hedrick, even like just recently, I did a Zoom call with some of my colleagues who are part of the Adobe Insiders group, as well as actually even better example is we actually did a call with all the instructors like myself for LinkedIn Learning, because I have a class called How to Teach Your Kids About Money. So all of us got together on a Zoom call, and then they broke us out into small groups. And it actually felt not that much different than when you went to an in-person live event, like having those breakout events, be able to talk and sort of mingle. That was really cool. And I'm excited to see if we get more of that, if our students get, our children experience that, if they can sort of bridge the temporarily that social interaction. So Dr. Jill, one thing that, which is the reality as a financial professional, as myself, we can't discount the importance of parents having the ability to get back to work and maintain like yourself, like your practice or our business and whatnot, and be able to go to just really focus on our work, but still juggling our kids, right? Having to make sure that they're on that call at that time, they can get the technology working and everything else. We obviously, like you mentioned before, we want to get our kids back to normal. But what I was curious about is your daughter going back to hybrid. How does she feel when you discuss this with her? How is her feeling about going back to school?
Well, her situation, Winnie, is just like many of my patients. I start my visits lately saying, homeschooling, was it this, this, or this? And most of the kids are doing this or down. And the biggest reason is they miss their friends. So Isabella is very much the same way. She's a social creature. She loves her friends and loves to be around them. And that's the big thing she misses. And and do the children like to be home? They sleep a little later, they're in their own house. It's nice to be with their mom and dad. I see even older children, 11, 12-year-olds, who are getting a little bit more attached than they thought they would. So I think that there's pluses, minuses, and Isabella just really would like to get back with her friends, and she enjoys learning. I'll tell you that many parents have told me that their children actually have learned better in the school system, of course, in the school setting, because there's less distraction. And then other parents have said there's less distraction at home. So I'm just getting so many angles. Parents are learning about their children in a way they've never known them and seeing them in a light that's so brand new. And it's really giving a lot of people, food for thought about how they want to continue to raise their children.
Yeah, absolutely. I would agree with you, Dr. Joe. I mean, I have 3 kids. They couldn't learn any differently from each other. And so Suzanne Brown, I just want to share with you, I know, is also a boy mom. And she says she would love to learn your thoughts about helping kids socialize and maintain connections with friends if they're doing distance learning. Hedrick, take it away. What do you think?
How old is her son?
Her kids are a similar age to my kids. So I would say, give you an elementary school.
Okay, there's some really fun things you can do online. Go Noodle, it's designed actually for the school as brain breaks.
I love Go Noodle.
Aren't they great? Go Noodle is great online. And you can set up a Zoom meet. So you set up a call and you can share a screen where you put up a Go Noodle or a dance video or something from Nearpod where they can all have a kind of a watch party and let them do that together. You can also make sure that they have the PS4 connection, the server connection, so that they can play Minecraft together. I know they're spending way too much time online, but that boy moms, you just have to let them hit the games every now and then. So they can do that together. And I was talking to my son, and he says he's really particular about the way he chats. He makes sure he writes. He said, "Mom, I just can't stand it when they don't write complete sentences and use punctuation," which is really funny. But it means that they're building language skills, they're building connections, and a Zoom is just a wonderful way to have kids meet, watch something quick, and spend time together where they can see each other and interact with one another. So I would strongly suggest that.
I love that because that's actually what my kids do. My kids right now, on top of all the classes they're taking, we do have set up so they do play Minecraft with their friends. And it's really cute because one of my kids will be like, "Hey, mommy, can we set up Zoom? Because Wes really wants us to Zoom." So we'll put up a Zoom on the iPad. So they're talking while they're playing and then having this, like, it's as if they're hanging out. It's not quite the same, Dr. Joe, as you mentioned. It's just not the same. But it's sort of the best of the situation that we have right now because these are kids that, I just don't trust them going and making sure they put their masks on right now. But Dr. Joe, love to get your feedback on Suzanne's question too.
Well, I think that a lot of it is online, like we have said. I do feel like the children, there are many families who have been telling me, "Oh, we're co-quarantining or we're doing it together because we know that this family hasn't been anywhere and we haven't been anywhere." So there's some of that going on. I see a lot of families telling me about their children riding bicycles outside in their cul-de-sac with other families, but not going inside other children's houses. So there's a lot. One thing I do find that's a problem for some of my families is their poor children are looking out the window at other kids whose families are not socially distancing. And then they're wondering why they can't go out and play with their friends when other kids are getting together. So I think the mixed feelings among our population are really tough for some of the children. But in addition to the online things and being with friends, what I found is family, the friend of your brother and sister and mom and dad, that's what's getting enriched with all of this. Going out for family walks and bike rides together and things like that are also very important. And we're learning so much more about each other as families. And these children are getting chances to be more mature and do a lot of their learning. Like one mom said, my daughter goes to her dorm room, to her bedroom at 10 years old because she's getting more independent. So as much as we do need friends and there's limited options, I think getting to know your family is also very important.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, Dr. Jill. And I couldn't agree with you more because, I was just talking to someone earlier today, that same exact reason. They said, well, how are you coping? It's been really such a blessing to have this time with my children because normally I'm on a plane every other week traveling to speak here or to be on CNBC for this event or that event. And sometimes you just get so busy, the kids are going off to their activities in school and we're always working, everybody's so busy. And now that we're able to slow down, I feel like each of my children, because I have 3 kids, each of my children has 2 best friends at home. They literally love spending time together. And just like what you had mentioned before, I love the idea of finding ways to socially distance, but still getting them together. Because what we found is on the weekends, if you go to a commercial area, like business park or whatever, a lot of these areas are completely empty on the weekends. So what we do is we'll schedule a bicycle day or afternoon with them and their friends to ride bicycles in an empty business parking lot. And I think you need to do those things. It can't just be only Minecraft online, but it's still good for them to see each other, talk to each other, see each other their goofiness and make jokes. But it's definitely takes more of a mindful effort, Dr. Jill, like you mentioned. I think that is the key word here. And Suzanne Brown says that she loves Go Noodle. And yes, we all love Go Noodle, right? Patrick, I'm guessing, like, given your background, I know that you are an amazing artist. I am guessing you guys have a lot of Go Noodle going on at home.
You know what? We kind of have our own thing. He's 16 now. And because he's a musician and a producer and a songwriter, we have little tiny, I call them tiny deck concerts. So we sit out on the patio and he brings out the ukulele or we make music. And sometimes we do TikToks. Yes, I have a really bad TikTok addiction.
Do your kids, do your students watch? I mean, they must know that you're a Grammy-nominated artist. Do your students actually watch your TikTok?
Oh, yeah, they watch and they send me messages and say that, Miss Nichols, that's cringy. Please don't do that dance again. It's like, you're a savage. Yeah, so, yeah. I am not the dancer that I once was. I taught dance actually in Switzerland when I was pregnant. I taught the whole fine arts department was my baby. And
wow.
Now I have no idea where my dance skills have gone, but they have gone. I just can't keep it from the brain. So
I doubt it. I'm sure they're still in there somewhere. I feel like COVID has a calling to bring it out.
But that's another fun thing that families are doing. They're spending time making TikToks together, and making little, not just dance ones, but little humorous ones. And mama can throw it back. And so they always show up. My feed curates very, very much for families. And so it's neat to see the many ways. I love what you said, Dr. Jill, how families are getting to know each other and learning to spend time with each other and doing bike rides together. And so there's some good things going on. I'll say that.
There's definitely a lot of silver linings, Hedrick. You're absolutely right. I think one of the silver linings is the 3 of us coming together and having this discussion because I'm learning so much from all of you. But certainly there's a good and there's a bad. But there's also a lot of parents who are feeling like they just are a little overwhelmed. There's all this misinformation. Dr. Jill, there's a lot of talk about vaccines. And I feel like we need to have this discussion. I'm sure you've read the news a lot of people are saying, Bill Gates said he feels that the vaccine will probably be available sometime in 2021. Dr. Fauci says perhaps he's carefully, but he's optimistic. He's careful, but he's optimistic. And we've also heard a lot of people saying, number one, they're not sure if they still want to wear masks. And number two, even if the vaccine's available, they don't know that they would actually take the vaccine. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, I'll say that my expertise is in pediatrics, not politics, and that can muddy the waters a lot if you want to go down that road. However, I do trust in vaccines. I believe in vaccines, but also when they're safe and they're tested, and I would do them on myself and my family. So that's my threshold for when I would be comfortable with them. I will say, even if there is a vaccine that comes out and it's proven to be effective and safe, there are still half the population, who knows what number, but there's a large majority of people that still will not get it. We've seen this with the flu vaccine. We know that many people just will not get the flu vaccine, despite even getting the flu some years and getting pretty sick. So I do know that one vaccine will not solve all of our problems. There's going to be repercussions of this for years to come, socially, economically, emotionally for children. However, if there is a vaccine that is effective and safe and has been tested in children, and we're all very comfortable with it as a pediatric society, of course, I'd be behind it for anyone who wants it. However, right now, I can't foresee in the next 6 to 8 weeks, of course, that we'll even have one to help with school decisions. But I feel that America is very informed. There's a lot of ways to gather information, some good, some bad, and it's very confusing for all of us. And so I think we just need a lot more information. We need a lot more studies and testing and ways to make sure that this vaccine, if there is one, is safe.
Great. I mean, Dr. Joe, I think that's a very fair assessment of what's happening here. There's a lot of information and we sometimes don't know who to trust, right? One day sounds very compelling and then someone else gives you a different thought process and you're like, that makes sense too. And then we're reading about other countries and what they're doing in Sweden and what they're experiencing in Japan or Korea. And it's all very confusing and it's hard enough for medical professionals to keep up. For those of us like myself who are not trained in medicine or science, it's even more confusing. So I can only imagine how that trickle effect is down. Hedrick, what do you think? Do you think, like, given the students that you work with and the parents that you work with, if a vaccine were to be here, right, and like Dr. Jill says, and encouraged by pediatricians, do you feel like most of the community that you work with would be comfortable with the vaccine? Or do you feel like, I don't know?
You know what? I really don't know. I know that there is always skepticism, not always, but there's often some skepticism because of the history of Blacks and Browns with medical personnel just not getting adequate care. There's some statistics that I'm basing that on. And so I don't know that everyone would, are we the guinea pigs? That might be a feeling. I really can't say. I can't say, but I think that what Dr. Jill said about them, if it's tested, it's been proven, there's some time, then I think, yes, the feeling that it's being rushed, I think makes people perhaps a bit hesitant.
I would agree with you, Hedrick, completely. I do feel the same way. I know I totally can understand the urgency to get this vaccine to be available, right? We all understand that, and we can appreciate that. But it certainly, as a parent, right, it certainly does make me nervous of whether or not I would have my children take the vaccine. And I think even like someone like myself, who I've been good about having all the kids vaccinated pretty much on schedule. Some of it was I actually was very proactive in slowing down the vaccine schedule when they were younger, because my sister has special needs children, and I thought, you know what, as long as they get all their vaccines, but we just slow down the process, because I wasn't sending them to school so quickly or daycare in the beginning, I felt like that was okay. But translate that now to the coronavirus with a vaccine that hasn't been tested yet, with enough time, right? Dr. Jill, I mean, like, we know a lot of the vaccines that our children took, like, I don't even know how many there are. I mean, there's like, I felt like we were always doing vaccines when they were little. But you know, I would think that, I think it's normal to be hesitant and to be not sure whether or not this is appropriate for your children yet.
Uh, I personally feel that parents are right to be questioning. I even tell my adolescent patients, do you know what vaccine I'm even putting in your arm? Shouldn't you ask me? It's your body. So I'm very, very pro being informed of all of our families. And while we are a pro-vaccine practice, we always encourage families to show us the evidence that they've found, or what article made you concerned, or show us your concerns. And in many vaccine hesitant parents, we can come to an agreement and debunk some things that might not be truthful that they heard. And we listen to our families. And I feel like so many pediatricians, and I'm on a forum with many, many pediatricians across the country, and I really feel like they're doing a great job of listening, not standing, on a high perch demanding families do certain things, but educating. And it is scary. There's so much stuff out there that's new to families, and you're trying to raise this child, keep a child alive and healthy. And this is a lot that's being mandated by schools, and it can make parents question. So I encourage the questioning. I think that's great that they're not just blindly doing anything. However, we just all need to be informed.
Yeah, I love that. I agree with you. We just all need to be informed. On that note, Dr. Joe, is there an area or a site that maybe that you're referencing yourself that you think might be helpful for parents to sort of stay on top of reading, get more information so that we can stay more informed?
Well, I do feel honestly that the CDC.gov, and again, everyone has their feelings about things, but we do reference a lot of our guidelines based on quarantining and how many days a person should be out, based on CDC.gov. There's healthychildren.org, which is always updating information. And really, the American Academy of Pediatrics website is chock full of information that helps parents kind of weed through all the different information so they can come to a good conclusion about what to do for their family.
I love that. Thank you. That's very helpful. And Hedrick, I know, you are obviously getting a lot of questions. Do your students reach out to you as well? Is it mostly parents that you work with?
No, both. I mean, I get questions from both. We did a project right when we were in crisis learning at the beginning, where I asked my students to write a story. It's basically journaling, but not quite. To write a story as if they are 30 years old and looking back on the great pandemic of 2020. And so I got some really interesting thoughts that we got to discuss. They are more savvy than you would believe. They are not just kind of home with mom and not paying attention. They have their own thoughts. They have their thoughts about school reopening. They have their thoughts about what's safe and what's not. I teach actually 11-year-olds and 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds. So I am impressed and savvy and surprised at how interested they are in finding good information, and not just kind of spouting something that you feel like an adult in the house said, but really making their own opinions and building their own ideas around what's good for them. So yeah, I'm kind of
I know you have some really savvy students. So what do they say to you? Do they tell you that they're concerned? Are they concerned for their parents? Or you're hearing just gung ho that I want to get back to school?
There's, because of so many of our students have actually experienced someone getting sick or someone dying, someone being in the hospital. There's some real fear. One of the comments that really got me was, what's the point in us locking down when our parents all have to go to work and they're going to bring it home to us, and we're going to all get sick? And when I heard that, I thought, that what do you do when your mom or dad is working and is an essential worker and they are going out, but you've been told as a kid, you've got to stay home and stay safe. So that was painful to hear, because we were all in the air. We still are. And I could not give him an answer at all. That was one of the few times when I felt I had nothing. There was not a site that we can go and look up the research and what happened last time. It was just to be able to say, I understand. I'm afraid too. Sometimes it's okay to be afraid.
sometimes it's okay to be afraid. I've spoken from a true teacher, because I think sometimes you need to let them be vulnerable and share, and they feel comfortable sharing this with you. Hedrick, there's been a lot of talk in the news also about students who really rely on school for food, right? For a lot of resources, especially areas that they might not be able to afford, like technology and internet service even. And not only that, just even like air conditioning and having a safe place to be. Do you deal with any of that? Have you seen students struggle in that way as well?
Yes, we do have students in our network that deal with food insecurity. What we've done in the North Texas area is pretty amazing. You can go to any school and pick up meals. So let's say, because I'm in a charter, everyone in our area, everyone in our school is not in our area. So maybe they might not be able to get to our school, but they can get to an AISD school down the street. So that was one of the things that I think teachers were most afraid of.
Mm-hmm.
One of the first things that superintendents did was to make sure that meal services continued. And that's one thing that I can say about the educational community. I have friends in my professional learning network all over the world and all over this country. And here in America, we did a wonderful job of making sure that kids were getting meal service. And so many of the districts have really invested so that kids can be one-to-one, so that we're buying hotspots so that access isn't an issue. And I know in rural areas that's still problematic, because there's literally no Wi-Fi to connect to. But the educational community has really stepped up in those areas. And so there will still be glitches, but they've done so much better than what we had in March, or what we expected when we hit the crisis.
I love that. So Dr. Jill and Hedrick, I'm curious to see in your communities, have teachers, the teacher community and the medical community come together? Like, how's there been discussions where you sort of have a coordinated effort? Because I know, Dr. Jill, many of your patients, if not all of your patients, also, are students of teachers in the community. Has there been in your community, discussions? So there's sort of a coordinated effect of, these are things that you can do. These are things if the kids get sick, or have you not seen that yet?
Well, I'll say personally, I haven't been called on to give any advice. There is one school that I'm on a board of the minds to help promote safe return to school. However, many of my families are teachers, and they're feeling like they are getting supported. I think there's so much funding that needs to be done. If the government wants our teachers to open in a certain way, there needs to be funds to be able to accommodate them. I will say that the American Academy of Pediatrics has been working with the Teachers Association, the School Superintendents Association. So groups have been coming together on a national level to try to give advice to our smaller communities. So personally, I haven't been involved yet. However, there are talks, of course, and that's who needs to be involved. The people in the front line.
Like that. I do feel like that way. I feel like as a parent, I would love to know that the teachers in our community are talking to the pediatricians in our community, right? Hedrick, actually, so what happened was my dad actually has had to go in and out of the hospital for the last few months. And it's always been continuously stressful on not only the family, but also the frontline workers and the physicians. And I remember having a discussion with one of his top doctors, and I said, she's just been so incredible to us, right? I feel like she's been a guardian angel to the family. And I said to her, how can we support you? And she says, you know what? The biggest way you can support us is just not to get sick, because we can no longer handle more people getting sick. We can't take care of everybody. We're already doing the best we can, and we're struggling. So if you really care about us, the frontline workers, because she works in ICO, she was like, just stay safe. So when you hear this, Hedrick, going into potentially limbo of what school is going to look like, these must be concerns that you have, So what are you hoping? I know you're going to keep your son at home. As an educator, what do you hope for?
I hope that we let the people who are guided by science, I hope we let those things be our North Star. And I hope that our governments find the money to fund education. If you have a population that is disproportionately affected by COVID and by COVID mortality, and you send kids into a schoolroom that may or may not have proper ventilation, that may or may not have, they have social distancing, they have some things in place, but automatically when we locked down, there were fewer cases. As soon as we began to open up, cases skyrocketed. So in March, when we were trying to flatten the curve, the water was about this high. Now the water is about this high, and they're sending us back into schools. And that's concerning. That's concerning to a lot of parents. In my network, 84% of the high school student parents said they did not want to send their kids back into that situation. So I'm hoping that, again, that funding shouldn't be an issue. We're confronting a major pandemic, and we can just have a moratorium on what decides for, how do we have to have people in the seats to get funding. We can have a moratorium on those kinds of things so that schools continue to be funding, so that we're not in a bad position next year, while keeping people safe and looking for some creative solutions, making sure that our kids who are under the SPED umbrella are serviced on campus. Our kids who are our littles are serviced on campus, and then making sure that we have good distance education situations for older kids, for high school students, those kinds of things. Because I'm just afraid that everybody is chasing the money, because we have to keep teachers on staff. We have to keep educational systems funded. And I'm afraid that is right now a big priority, and it shouldn't be. It should be able to be the health community telling us what we need to do, and us being able to do that.
I love that. I know. And I see Dr. Jill like agreeing as well. And, I think let's put all three of us on and together. I think what we love hearing is that we should really be paying more attention to science, which is, I think, the underlining discussion here. Dr. Jill, I saw you definitely nodding when Hedrick was saying that as well. It's interesting because we have such a heated discussion, like even pertaining to masks, whether you wear masks or you don't. And let's not even talk about politics, because this is not that forum for this. But if we look at other countries, right? Other countries, there's a higher participation rate in wearing masks. And we've seen a higher interest in really sort of preserving safety measures. And we've had challenges certainly here in the United States, more so than I think some countries. And some countries obviously are doing worse than us as well. So it's not like, we are like the only country having issues, but certainly driven by science. That's a great thing. So, even Dr. Jill, even if we just follow science, it's been very confusing, because we have some medical professionals saying, yes, you should follow CDC and you should do this and this. And we have other medical professionals that wear white coats just like you, Dr. Jill, who have these MD or, degrees too. They're telling us not, and they're very convincing. How do we as non-medical professionals, Hedrick and I aren't doctors, how are we supposed to be able to decipher, like not all good people wear hero outfits, and not all bad people wear like scary costumes, right? So it's hard for us to figure out. What are your thoughts, Dr. Jill? You must be dealing with this.
Well, it's every day I'm looking at my emails, and you get all kinds of medical stuff. Every day there's something different. One thing children aren't getting it. The next thing, 40,000 lives were saved by children not going in the spring. And you don't know what to believe. So for me to decipher it, I can't really, again, like I said, I can't imagine how you guys are doing it. I think you're doing a beautiful job, but I can't imagine how conflicting it is. I would like to take a moment, though, to just draw it back to a little bit of a bigger perspective. There's short-term fixes here. There's vaccines, there's masks, and then there's long-term solutions. How can we keep our bodies and our minds and our families healthy long-term? I don't want to forget that obesity, hypertension, diabetes, cardiovascular disease, those are all sounding like adult diseases, but they're affecting our children, because I don't know how much we're all paying attention to these long-term, these problems that have been around for a long time. We know so much more about the immune system and the gut microbiome. That's where our health is healthier, and being mindful of where our food is coming from, being mindful of getting quality sleep. We're getting good exercise. It doesn't have to be CrossFit. It can be walking with the family every day, but consistent, balanced health and nutrition in so many ways for our bodies. That's how we're going to stay healthy when pandemics are gone and the next virus comes and the next bacteria comes, and all these other problems happen. We're going to be better suited to handle them. So I'd like to look at that big picture, and I like to remind my families of that as well.
I love that. That's really helpful. And, we got to get sunshine and have that positive mindset too, right? A little vitamin D does a body good. Hedrick, thank you so much. I can't thank the two of you enough for being here on our first episode of Modern Mom Monday TV. This is incredible. I'm so grateful that you came and had this discussion with us. I hope you both enjoyed it, because I certainly, as a parent, really appreciated hearing from you. And I hope those of you who are watching as well. These are the kind of conversations I think we just have to have an open-minded discussion on in a very nurturing, supportive way. There's so much stuff going on in the world already that the three of us can't control, but what we can do is we can come with an open heart and try to share as much as we can, and just give different perspectives. I love that Dr. Jill, not only an award-winning pediatrician based in the East Coast, her daughter, she has elected to go back to school in a hybrid format. She's okay with that. They've had a conversation. That's the decision they've made. Then we have Hedrick joining us from the great state of Texas, different community. She's a teacher, and all experiences that she has, not only as an educator, but as a parent, making a decision for her son that he'll be at home doing distance learning. And really hearing from her that as an educator, she's in limbo, but she's also juggling the feelings of her students, just as Dr. Jill is taking care of her patients, as well as the parents of her patients and the community, because she's also on the board of a school and helping make those discussions. I just wish we had more opportunities where we had teachers and doctors coming together more regularly, having these discussions based on science as well as based on feelings of parents. I think if we were to do more of this, more listening and with less judgment, we would probably all benefit a lot more. And one thing actually was so powerful. I heard this from a Gen Zer actually. She said, I think the key thing is if you're going to have a discussion about somebody or about a population or about a group, you got to make sure that you have that somebody at the table. And I think we would agree that if we're going to talk about science, we need to have an award-winning doctor. If we're going to talk about school, we need to have a teacher. And that's what we want to do with Modern Mom TV. We want to continue to have these open conversations without judgment in a safe place, but really be able to let you ask those questions, let you answer in your own way. And of course, let you, as you yourself know best, make the decision that's best for you and your family. So with that, I want to say a huge thank you to Dr. Jill Hedrick. Amazing. Hedrick, you two are amazing. Hedrick, I really want to hear you sing one day. But Dr. Jill, I would be if you're in the New Jersey area and you have kids, Dr. Jill is your doctor. I'm sure her wait list is very long, but obviously there's a reason.
All of them. Yeah.
She takes care of all of them, and there's a reason why she continues to be chosen as one of the top doctors in New Jersey. So we thank you both for your time. Well, and a special thank you to Suzanne Brown and as well as Chuck Poole for introducing these two incredible ladies to me. I feel very grateful to be able to spend some quality time with you both. If you have any other questions and you want to follow up, we want to make sure to share where you can do that. Curtis, my wonderful producer, is going to share with you how you can follow along with each of these ladies and their information. Hedrick, why don't we start with you? Because I know you know social. So tell us where we can find you.
You know what? I'm blessed with a name. I was talking with Dr. Jill before we went live. My name is Hedrick, Hedreich. I am the only one spelled like that in the whole wide world. So at Hedrick on Twitter, at Hedrick on Instagram, at Hedrick on Facebook, at Hedrick on Gmail. That's me. Hedrick. Look, there I am.
Look how, and I love it. And hopefully you'll sing for us one day too.
There we go.
Okay, that's how every show should have. All right. Dr. Jill, now we know as a very busy pediatrician with a very full practice, social media might not fit in your formula if you're busy formula right now. So how can we follow you along? And most importantly, for those parents who are in the East Coast and thinking, you know what, I really want to see Dr. Jill, where can they go to find you? Okay, she has froze, so I will say that you can actually find her on her website, and we'll make sure that you see on the bottom of our screen, you'll see it's tickering. That is Dr. Jill's website. But Dr. Jill, we were just saying that there's going to be a lot of parents who are on the East Coast are going to want to meet you, so we're actually sharing your website right now.
Yeah, and everything is there at healthykidsnj.com. There's links to my my wellness roundup blog and all kinds of good information. My physician assistant and I, PJ Pimpinelli, the two of us do videos pretty often for our families to keep everybody connected. So you can watch those too.
I love that. We didn't even get to that, but what a great thing to do right now with the pandemic is sort of over communicating. And I know the two of you have done this very well. Dr. Jill with all her videos, Hedrick with all her videos as well. I think this is one of the things that we can do as professionals is to continue to speak to our audience. And so I want to thank my incredible friends at Modern Mom who allowed us this opportunity to host this show and bring on additional topics that are front of mind to many of us, professionals and everybody else, and families. These are the things that we want to talk about. So if there's any other topics that you would love to see us feature on Modern Mom TV, please feel free to send us a message on the platform that you're on. We would love to hear from you, and we want to just say thank you. Thank you so much for being part of the community, and we appreciate your time. We hope that you stay safe, and we will see you again on another Monday very, very soon. Take care.